Welcome back, folks. This is Acid Root. So we're in part 13 of Let's Play Mystic Quest, and in the last episode we got done with the Ice Pyramid, and now it's time to move on to greener pastures, and figurative speaking. So, this game is still kind of in the beginning stages. I mean, we're fairly deep into this, probably further than, like, casual playthroughs, but I just would have to kind of say, like, we've got plenty of tricks left. I mean, as you can see, we've only just opened up the second of 4 doors. And the thing about the focus tower is I think this is the hub to, like, the final area of the game. Which, you know, that's interesting enough. But, yeah, I also forgot. There's a certain spell that I forgot to get. I'm going to have to get it in the next episode. I didn't do it in the gameplay. I just did. But it's, as you can see, it's just right over there, and I could really use that spell. I've got to be more careful about getting those spells, but we will go back and get that. And hopefully, I'm just going to have to hope. I might just have to turn on the video game machine right now after I do this episode and do it. I just would have to say, new area. So basically, I'll spoil it just within the next few seconds, but basically we're heading into, like, the volcanic section of the game. So I think you can tell it's going to culminate with a volcano. And, but first we're going to head into a pretty spiffy town. I mean, for 1992, the way that video games were, this is kind of like, to me, the Las Vegas of the towns in the game. I don't really think there's going to be too many of spiffier towns than this. You can kind of tell by, like, the jazzy and kind of more lucrative style of, like, the main theme. Like, the first village at the beginning was kind of more Lord of the Rings style and that type stuff, and then the ice one was kind of more wintry and coolish, kind of chilly kind of sounding, but this one's very ritzy, so that's cool. I mean obviously this game is so distant. I mean, I don't mean to say it like that in a bad way, but it's just so, like, this it's not trendy. I feel like that's a better term as far as saying that, but I still appreciate this game quite a bit. It's a very stellar game. Definitely a game I'd give over an 8.5 out of 10, but probably a 9, something like that. But yeah, just, I don't know. I appreciate, I think I've said this before at least once or twice, that I appreciate Final Fantasy VII's just, like, awareness that it has. So, but yeah, so we're gonna explore around a bit and kind of see what's up. Head to the hotel, and I didn't realize I could get explosives from that guy. That definitely would have helped. But yeah, first I'm gonna talk to everyone in town because I feel like that's appropriate. So I do feel like there should have been more people in town, though. There's really not. To me, there's only like 2 or 3 people total to talk to. So can't go in there yet. We'll get to that soon enough. So the only thing really left is just to go inside the building. Let's head in the hotel and see what's up. This is kind of the first, a hotel, you know. It's kind of, I mean, people actually sleep here. It's kind of like how Capri Sun says sometimes when he'll talk about wanting to sleep in certain places in the game. This would be a pretty cool town to visit, speaking of which. You know, just by the offbeat kind of relative starkness of this game, I would say this is a pretty cool town. It's kind of, I mean, surely if you live in the United States, you've been to towns like this. You know, probably more towns. Like I said, this was like the Las Vegas of towns, but definitely, yeah. They're almost something like Denver or town like that, you know. I don't know. I mean, there's tons of towns like New Orleans, those type towns that are big, but then they're not, like, as large as, like, California or New York's towns and stuff. So that's what this kind of feels like. But yeah, so I decided to take a rest at the inn, and but yeah, so if you notice, we saw Tristram there, and pay attention to that. Really, this could be a stumping situation if you don't necessarily know what to do, and it did. So the gameplay segment where I did this in tow with, like, the last gameplay segment is just you know, admittedly this area stumped me and I had to figure out what to do. So Yeah. So we're slowly but surely getting clues. So you'll figure it out, you know. It's kind of like the opposite of the previous world and areas that we were in. But you notice we don't have a party member, so we've been hearing about things around town. The thing about these characters in this game is it's kind of like similar to stuff from like the 90s, like stuff like Terminator 2 and that movie with Keanu Reeves and the other guy. I forget what that movie's called, but it came out like in the early 90s. They went in like a time machine and stuff. I own this movie. It's like right over there. Yeah, I'm gonna go put down my headset and go figure out what movie I'm talking about. Yeah, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I mean, that probably wouldn't have come to me if I had just kept thinking like this. But yeah, to basically talk about that, the characters in this game, their reputation kind of precedes them. That's kind of the situation. Like that kind of guy, that guy in the brown cloak from earlier, he basically said to seek out Ruben and Fireburg. So we basically knew ahead of time. It's like, oh, this is basically the next guy who's noteworthy that's going to be able to help us out and stuff. So it's like, there you have it. But, so yeah, I just am kind of, you know, at this point I didn't know what to do. I tried bombing it. I thought that would be something that we could do, but nope. So that should take care of this gameplay segment, but we still have 8.5 minutes. Or 8, yeah, basically 8 minutes, so we're wondering what's next, and I'll tell you. So, have to... so yeah, we did get our party member, and, but here's the situation. I mean, really, the characters in this game, they don't really, well, I'll just go ahead and spoil it. So we're going to talk to Tristram, and that's what you do. I mean, it's not open, and there's no real sign that says, hey, but there's really not a lot to do in this town. I mean, for the 90s, this probably wouldn't have been that difficult to figure out, but I'm just used to in games where you go about places and it kind of points you in the right direction, and the characters give you little clues and tidbits about some of that stuff as far as how that sort of stuff goes. But you're definitely going to want to buy some seeds, just because, like, the enemies, when they damage you, it kind of makes a certain kind of thing and stuff, and yeah, it's just better to be able to use the cure and heal spells. They'll definitely come in handy. I mean, unless you just like spending money on cure potions, but... So. How do you use one? Just throw it. Feels like a commercial. Do the haymaker. You can throw one. Yeah. So... kind of happens to be a thing, but I mean, some of this stuff really feels like a 90s commercial. It's just kind of funny how this kind of happens, but yeah, so we're gonna head to the next dungeon. That's what's coming up. I mean, like I said, this game is pretty almost platonic, but it's not in a bad way, but, you know, I mean, really, I noticed that the more I noticed, like, Final Fantasy VII did not do this. It's just leaps and bounds. There's stuff to do and people to talk to, but I really feel like I need to play a role-playing game from, like, later than the PlayStation 2, just because I'm so used to, like, talking to all these characters, but I mean, I probably need to mess with, like, the PS4 Final Fantasy VII remake that came out. I just would kind of have to say, like, and I did feel like doing a battlefield area here just to show off some of the characters. But yeah, I mean, obviously I don't know how the rest of those Final Fantasy VII games are kind of coming along. I think I want to say at least the second one, but they've been working on those since 2020. So this is kind of interesting. I mean, it's a large game. It's a huge game, especially for the PS4 and such. But yeah, I was kind of talking with Jackal Goldkick and stuff about, like, the what was I trying to say? Like, something about... Yeah, I'm starting to not remember now. It's kind of pissing me off. It had something to do with, like, Damn it. I just completely lost my train of thought here. It had something to do with, like, the PS4 or something. Just the fact that it's been, like, it's in, like, its second year, and I just, that kind of brings me to what I guess I could talk about is me kind of saying I just wonder how, like, the PS4 is doing, because I haven't moved to the Xbox Series X, which is the one I would get. But it's just odd how, these new video games are out and some people haven't even moved on. Like when the Xbox One came out and the PS4, I mean, it was totally okay to play the 360 and the PS3 years later. I mean, I want to say that the 360 you could still get in stores until like at least 2015 or even 2016. So, I mean, that's just kind of the concept. I mean, video games is kind of, this is why I'm playing games like this. Is this a specific example? This is better. This game is better than stuff that came out in 2018 and 2020. This far and away. So yeah, I'm skipping a few battles. I just, I want to simply get this stuff in motion here. So, I mean, I can show some of them, but, it's just going to kind of depend. There's a boss fight in the next episode that's going to happen, so we're at least partially done with this area. But that should get us into part 14 and possibly part 15. I am going to have to do a little bit more gameplay, which I will get to, but should be simple enough, I mean, you just have to kind of take it as is. I mean, really, just savor and maybe not so much cherish, but just thoroughly enjoy the concept of getting more of these. That's kind of the concept there, is me just doing these and having them belted together. Because YouTube is just becoming very stagnant. Everything is. I mean, there's just too much. Like, it's YouTube's fault. I definitely blame YouTube for this, just because there's no real way of consolidating. So I don't know how many people just go to YouTube Gaming just to specifically find the stuff that they want. And on top of that, it really pisses me off just because it's not good enough to figure it out. And I mean, you'd think Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, would be able to kind of figure out that. I mean, there are at least genres. There's YouTube Music, YouTube Kids, YouTube Gaming, maybe even YouTube Sports, but it needs to be more consolidated than that. There needs to be a YouTube website for YouTube videos older than like 2013 or so, because really YouTube is about 16 years old. I mean, really 2005 is 17 years ago, and that's when it first started, so it should just be consolidated into about 8 years. And they need to figure out how to do that, because it needs to be like a library where you just archive stuff, where you talk about the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. That's what YouTube needs to do. I mean, it was fine back in like 2013 when YouTube was only like 6, 7, 8 years old. But now that it's like 16, I just feel like that's basically over 1 billion YouTube videos, and it's just not fun hunting for those. It's basically fucking over like all the smaller YouTubers. So they really need to do that, If there's any potential like freelance type YouTubers and stuff that could consolidate this idea and pitch it to them, I would say definitely go for it, because it just makes it too much of a nightmare. And on the hint here, these zombies multiply themselves. So watch out for that. I mean, you could wind up having a pretty lengthy battle here. Ruben, luckily, is stronger than them and can one-shot them, so pay attention to that. But, yeah, I mean, he's prone to status effects, so that's the thing. These zombies do status effects, and he's prone to them. At least Benjamin is not prone to paralyze, so that's kind of thing. That's at least one trick that you have up your sleeve. I don't know if it's the armor he has or what it is, but that's kind of what to pay attention to. So we're almost done with this episode, and we're basically gonna probably have at least this battle, and then you'll see the groundwork for the next battle that we're gonna get into. But yeah, this is not a very long dungeon. This is kind of like the ice tunnel, or you fought an ice crab, and then you fought an ice squid, and then the ice pyramid boss. So this is just an example of the mini area in the Fireburg, which is basically, I take it, the 3rd gem. So we're just getting started, but we'll complete this area next episode more than likely. So subscribe for more fun. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful night. See you in part 14.